Hello, human beings. I want to talk about the topic of growling, within quotation marks, being used as a therapeutic technique or a stress relief technique. I randomly receive this question, and I also hear people talking about this, and I would like to just jump in with a couple of thoughts of mine. A little bit of context and background. I have been singing and growling for I don't even know how many years now. And I wanted to teach harsh vocals because they are very, very, very important to my favorite genre and style of music, which is metal. As a teacher, I wanted to be able to provide support if any vocalist who wants to work with me has had an injury in the past, is recovering from an injury, etc. So I put a lot of time, money, and effort into a lot of further studies around vocal health. I did most of my studies on this topic with vocal health education. I'll link them in the description below, and you can kind of check out and get a sense of what I've done. The question, can growling be used as a therapeutic or stress relief technique? My answer is going to be yes and no. And it's going to be a little bit nuanced. And I just want to mention some basic pros and cons. So the main pros of doing extended vocals and harsh vocals that I can think of, therapeutically speaking, is that number one, it can be incredibly empowering. Most people don't make these sounds. Most people don't know people directly that make these sounds. Most people have never made this sound or experienced this sound come out of their body. If you're a singer and you only do clean singing, if you have any experience with classical singing, it's a very, very, very similar thing. When they generate this unbelievable volume, and you're like, oh, did that come from me? Oh my goodness. It's the same thing. It's just very exciting. There's a lot of laughter usually in the lessons. It's just really fun making ugly sounds, which is also helpful. Now, the second part of it is that I would argue it can be expansive for your sense of self and your identity. Because you're making this sound, you're exploring these sounds, you're unlocking these sounds, and they are coming from you and they are part of you. And for most people, there is no prior mold or conception of themselves that contains these sounds, which means that their sense of themselves can only expand. It can only get bigger and grow and take up more space rather than change. Because you're not suddenly going to think, oh, I'm a normal human and I phonate normally. I go one day and now I am a troll at the bottom of the bridge and I can no longer speak to people normally and I can only generate this one sound. So it doesn't change your identity the way that other things do. It just expands it, I would argue. Those are my main pros. To my cons. Growling, screaming, and doing weird stuff with your voice has a slight risk to it. It isn't the lightest way of vocalizing. It isn't the most delicate way of vocalizing. And it just has a slight risk. We're talking about a slight risk in the sense of when you stand around in your house, in your bathroom or your kitchen, that environment is a bit riskier than when you are in your bedroom or the living room. You're not going to die. You go into the kitchen and the bathroom every single day. I growl every single day. I'm not going to die. It's just a slightly more dangerous environment than the indifferent environment of the living room. That. Emotions sometimes make it riskier because emotions very often have tension attached to them. If the tension is the right amount, yay, you're gonna do whatever, you're gonna do a fantastic growl, but if it's too much, that can be really bad. So it's complex. The second con is that the process of learning how to make these sounds, and even getting to the point where you make a sound that's even half decent, can be a very lengthy process. It isn't always a lengthy process. Sometimes we're making amazing sounds in the first lesson. Other times it's like we're months in and we're not quite getting there. Depending on what process might be therapeutic for you, that could actually be very damaging as a process. It could impede on your sense of worth, on your competence, on everything. And in general, I would argue that a sense of competency can be very important in a therapeutic context. So these are my two main cons. That being said, two things just about our terms. Number one, therapeutic, right? Can growling be used therapeutically? So when I hear the word therapeutic, I usually assume that it is somehow, let's say, healing, has a positive effect, and that positive effect is measurable and is not only placebo. I mean, if we're defining therapeutically like that, and we're defining therapeutically in a proper scientific sense and in a medical sense, no. We have no evidence base to make such ridiculous claims. And by ridiculous claims, I don't mean that it is unthinkable that it could help someone. I mean that it is very ethically questionable to blanket statement insinuate that this will be a positive experience. That's all I'm saying. So it's the ethical side that I have an issue with. Other than that, if we're defining therapeutically in like a colloquial sense, yes. But in the same vein, almost anything can be used therapeutically and for stress relief. I'm sure there's a human out there who swims with sharks for stress relief. It just depends on your personality and what works for you. And then the second thing is stress relief. I mean, how do you relieve stress? How do you even get stressed? It completely depends on your personality. For a lot of singers, starting to growl and the process of growling is stress-inducing because they're so scared and they're so worried about what they'll do to their voices. And for other people, it's like so cool because they're like, wow, look at what I'm doing with my voice and it doesn't hurt and it just feels so easy. Yay. So again, personality. I think when it comes to therapeutic things, it's great if it's coming from the side of the student. So if you as a person want to explore growling and screaming because you think it might have a positive effect on you and you're interested in therapeutic potential, etc., and it's all starting from you and coming from you, yes, that's absolutely fine. Very happy to explore that as an option with you. Really happy to help and facilitate the process. and make sure that everything is happening safely and blah, blah, blah. But I will not claim or suggest that this will be a positive experience, or that this would be a good idea of, hey, you should do this as your first option, when your first option could have been go to the spa and then go to a live concert and do something with a lot less risk. This is always quite an interesting topic. And if you know any research, especially, that would indicate in any way whatsoever that there might be something therapeutic behind making strange sounds, let me know. Again, I find that most research like this, like singing in choirs or singing for mental health and stuff like that, all the research doesn't do a good enough job of assessing and accounting for people's personalities, their preferences, how primed they were for this to work for them, and the number of people that don't want to do it and wouldn't even consider it as an option. And so I don't think it gives a realistic idea of what we're really talking about. That. Questions, comments, thoughts, leave them in the comments below. Look at the description of the video if you're interested in vocal health education and you want to get nerdy around vocal health and learn more. If you want to join my Patreon, link is also in the description. Yay! And I will see you when I see you next. Bye!